teach you how to make pizza today. Pizza is one of everybody's favorite foods, except for weird curmudgeons. You know who you are. You're probably used to going out to get pizza or ordering pizza in, but making pizza at home is really rewarding because you can put whatever you want on top of it. You can tweak it, and it just feels great, and it's so good when it's fresh. Let's start with the dough. The dough has some simple ingredients in it. It is flour, salt, honey, yeast, and water. So I'm gonna take 1 teaspoon of yeast, and I'm gonna toss it in there. Then I'm gonna take 3 cups of water and add it to the yeast. 6½ cups of flour. I'm gonna add it to my yeast water. I use the heel of the spoon because there's less stuff for the flour to stick to. Because you have to knead it for so long, using a stand mixer is the way to go. When you're working with dough, you wanna use the dough hook. What I found though is that you can save yourself a lot of time if you start off doing a little bit of kneading with the paddle and then you move to the dough hook. Mount it up. And now I have my other 2 ingredients. I've got a tablespoon of salt, 2 teaspoons of honey.
Would you eat this like this right now?
The dough?
Yeah.
No, don't eat raw flour. Don't eat raw flour, folks. Salmonella. It's not just for chicken anymore.
But raw honey on the other hand.
Just don't feed it to babies because their immune systems aren't fully developed yet. Unlike us adults. We're perfect. We also know everything. I'm gonna put this on a low speed. I'm gonna keep it at about stir. It really just immediately seizes up onto it, and this is why you don't normally use the dough hook. This may have been a really bad idea. So this is what not to do. You have a dough hook, and you have a paddle, and you should only use the paddle when you're an idiot like me. It's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine. Start off at speed 2. According to the manufacturer's instructions, you should never go faster than speed 2, but I don't like following the rules. Oh yeah, guys, one more thing. Probably need to mount the bowl. So this is gonna be your life for the next 6 to 8 minutes. If it doesn't start to come together, that's what we have some extra flour here for. It's so close, so I'm gonna add 1 more little spoonful of flour to help it pull away. So I'm gonna hit back on stir so it doesn't blast everywhere. And get that flour in there. Now this is looking about where we want it. It's starting to pull away from the sides. So now we can turn it off. And it's a great relief to everyone's ears. We've got our dough kneaded, and we've got a bowl here that we're gonna put it in to do its bulk rise. Stick some olive oil, I don't even measure it, just enough to coat the bowl. And then I have a paper towel here, and I can use that to wipe the bowl all over, and then put a little on whatever you're gonna cover it with, if it's saran wrap or reusable lid, and do the same thing. I should have put the bowl over here. You can then put your oiled lid on top of the dough, and you want it to rise in here until it's at least doubled. It's okay if it goes a little extra, but it's about room temperature for 2 to 3 hours. We'll take a look at it when that's done. So I waited a little bit too long, got distracted today, and my lid is sort of floating up here. One more piece of equipment that I think you should have for this is a pizza stone. Pizza stones absorb heat really well, and then they transfer it right into your pizza. You always want to put your pizza stone in the oven when the oven is cold. Otherwise, your pizza stone could crack. I'm gonna take my stone, I'm gonna put it here, and we have not a ton of clearance between where the broiler is gonna be and where the stone is. If your element is gas, maybe you want to make it a little safer so you don't have something catch fire. You're gonna have to use your judgment. You always want it super hot. Sometimes pizza chains are named after how hot their oven is, which is a really bizarre decision. It's not like any one place has ever called 41 degrees Fahrenheit because they make sure to keep your food safe in the fridge. Your home oven is gonna have a top range of either 450, 500, or 550 degrees. I'm gonna turn on the oven now to 550. That's about as hot as it can go. Then I have 2 different pizzas I'm gonna make. One of them is a classic Margherita pizza, and that's tomato sauce, mozzarella, and some basil at the end. And the second pizza is more of like a flatbread. I'm taking some creative license here, and it's some of our homemade ricotta, along with some sage, some toasted walnuts, and some honey. I always like to have the ingredients totally ready before I start shaping the dough, and that way I can, get them right up, and I can,
Work quickly once the dough is ready.
I can work quickly once the dough is ready. Our pizza oven's gonna be way hotter than what we need to toast walnuts, and they'll burn. So we have to toast them ahead of time and put them on the pizza at the end. It's this kind of fancy food prep that'll make you look like a super gourmand in front of all of your friends. So I am spreading the walnuts around somewhat evenly. It doesn't really matter too much. I have a toaster oven set to 350 degrees, and I'm gonna put them in for just 5 minutes. So if you start to smell them in your kitchen, just take them out right then. All right, I can start to smell the walnuts now, and the timer went off. I mean, I guess I have to admit that. And I'm going to take them out of the oven. You know they're good because they'll just be a little toasty around the edges. They'll be slightly browner, and they'll just smell really fragrant and nice. The sauce has got to be simple for pizza. You want something bright that's gonna pop out against everything. And I found that the best way to do this is just use whole peeled tomatoes, beat them into pulp, and then mix in salt. And that's all you need. I actually did this video twice. The one part that we saved was the tomato sauce. So I'm just gonna go move over to that other clip right now because I don't wanna make way too much tomato sauce. So I'm gonna open this guy up. Oh, a little bit of a mess, but you know, well, that's my fault. And I'm gonna take about a teaspoon of kosher salt and throw it in there because tomatoes can take a lot of salt. You know what, I'm gonna put a little bit of extra salt because I just like it salty. In my case, I'm gonna cheat. I got one of these handy dandy guides. It's called an immersion blender if you're fancy, or a stick blender if you're 8 years old. I'm gonna attempt to do this just in the can. If it goes well, it'll be really convenient. And if it goes poorly, it's gonna be a damn mess. Okay, here we go. So if you tilt the stick blender a little bit, you can get kind of a vortex going in there. Oh, there's the mess I was talking about. And that's it. So now we have all of our ingredients ready to make the pizzas, and we can wait for the oven to preheat. I wait usually about an hour. I'm gonna change it to broil now. And the reason we wanna change it to broil is we've already warmed the stone up as much as we can from the bottom element, and now we wanna blast it on heat from the top. This way we get it as hot as we possibly can. This recipe makes enough for about 4 pizzas, so I'm only gonna cook 2 tonight. That means I'm gonna store the rest in the fridge for later. The dough actually gets better over the next couple days in the fridge. You can keep it for 4 or 5 days. We'll take our lid off, and because we put oil on it, it doesn't stick too badly. And we got our little jiggles going on here. I'm gonna get my hands wet so that it doesn't stick. So I'm gonna take the dough. Notice how stringy it is there. That's good, that's all the gluten that's built up on it. And I'm gonna take the whole thing and I'm gonna put it on the lid. I'm gonna take half of it and I'm gonna stick it right back in there because I'm gonna use it. And I think that I put a little bit too much in that one, so there. Take this guy. I wanna push all the air out of it. Now we got Mr. Fridge, or Ms. Fridge, or Mrs. Fridge, Master Fridge. So now we're ready to shape the dough. This for me is the most difficult part. I'm gonna put some flour on that. Then I'm going to take my dough down here. I am going to cut it in half because I want to make 2 different loaves. And again, you can just use a knife if you don't have a bench knife. I'm going to get my hands a little bit wet. And I'm going to form it into a little pouch here. So I'll kind of tuck it under, make a nice bit of tension there, and then I can set it down. Now we've got 2 loaves ready to go. I'm going to get a little bit of extra flour and put it back on the lid. Get one of these guys just sort of resting for later. So it's time to actually make ourselves a crust. We're gonna make ourselves a crust form. We're gonna get it nice and coated so that it doesn't stick to anything. So you're gonna start off with your palm, and you're gonna press kind of evenly around to try to get it to stay into a circle. And then as it starts to spread out, I'm gonna start using my fingertips to poke into the dough to kind of get it to spread evenly. And if it starts to stick, it means I need a little bit more flour on the surface, and I can just flip it over because it's been kind of picking that up from the other side. Now, if I want to stretch it a little further, and you do because you want to get it as thin as you can, the next step is to kind of pick it up and let gravity do some extra work. You don't want to use your fingertips as you pick up the dough. And the reason is it'll poke through, it'll stretch the dough too much, and it'll make a hole in the dough. So take your hand, put it face down on one side of the dough very lightly, and then flip the other side of the dough on top of your hand, and then you can raise with the whole back of your hand. And then you can make little claws underneath. And it's sort of like halfway to a fist, but not really. And what that does is it spreads your hands out enough that you can let the dough sort of hang loose and stretch a little bit. And we can sort of work our way around a little bit, but we stay mostly in the center. Because if you get too far to the edges, what'll happen is too much weight will be on the portion of the dough where you're where your hands are and it'll start to tear. So let's go over and put this guy down. So we've got some parchment paper ready on our peel. Drop him down. And if it folds under itself a little, that's fine. You can just unfold it because it has some residual flour. And I like to season the dough at this step just because, I don't know, maybe I'm just a salt hound. So just get a little bit of salt on there, kind of, you know, prime it for the tomatoes. And then get your tomato sauce. And you don't need a ton of it, so just a couple spoonfuls will do. And then you can use the back of the spoon to spread the sauce around on the pizza. Again, if you have more of a pizza oval like I do, it's totally fine. Ovals are shapes too. I like to see a buckyball calzone. That'd be pretty nuts. Now let's get the cheese on. For the cheese, I don't even care too much about slicing it or having it be particularly accurate. Tearing it up, sticking the cheese on here. I like to top it off with a little bit of olive oil, and I just do a quick little squirt on the top. I'm gonna tear off some of this extra parchment paper because I don't want it to catch fire. Now, a lot of people don't use parchment paper at all here. The reason I do is because I've seen pizza disasters before where the pizza sticks to the peel. If you don't have a pizza peel, you can use a big sheet of cardboard. That works well too, and you can shove it in. So our oven's still on broil. We still got our pizza stone in there in the top rack. And we'll just scoot this guy in, little jerks forward and then pull back. Shut the oven. And now we wait maybe 5 to 10 minutes, depending on how hot your oven is, but just keep a close watch on it. And we'll show you what it looks like when it's ready. When this pizza is going to be ready, we want to get some basil on it. I'm going to do something called chiffonade. Stack the basil up like this, and then you just roll it up like a, like a joint or cigarette or whatever it is you smoke. And then you cut it crosswise. Now we have these fun little strips of basil. Okay, so our pizza is just about ready. It's gonna look like this when it's real close, or basically it's done right now. And you wanna edge the peel just underneath it and shoot it real quick. And it'll just slide onto there. And it wasn't so beautiful going in, but look how beautiful it is coming out. We can take that, slide it onto a wire rack. You can put it right on a cutting board if you don't have a wire rack. But man, I mean, don't you just wanna eat it? And then I can sprinkle however much basil I want on top. We have this beautiful pizza, and notice how the crust has puffed up. It's a little crisp on the outside, but it's gonna be really chewy on the inside and moist. And that's because we made the oven so hot. We are a pizza roller house. We use the rollers here. I don't know what you use. You could use a knife or one of those weird seesaw things because you're some sort of freak who misses the playground. One across. And then let's get this perfect looking little slice here. It's just nice and fluffy on the inside. But I'm gonna try to not burn my mouth here, which is the bane of pizza eaters everywhere. So, I know I always say it's really delicious, but it's really, really delicious. You got the sauce being really bright, popping through. Mozzarella's nice and chewy, and the crust is just magnificent. It's just got that little bit of crispness on the outside, and then it just melts in your mouth and chewy in the inside. So this is the flatbread style pizza where we're gonna have a different set of ingredients. Let's get those ready. The only thing we're gonna put on this pizza before we put it in the oven is olive oil and ricotta. And that's because we don't wanna burn the walnuts or the sage. So we're gonna put the sage in a few minutes through, and we're gonna put the walnuts in since we've already toasted them at the end, along with the honey. And I'm gonna sprinkle my salt on top, just give that little bit of seasoning. I think seasoning your dough is an underrated practice. It really gives it that extra little kick. Then I need the olive oil. So we'll do a quick little drizzle over with that. Well, now I'll get my ricotta, and let's do just ricotta dollops. You know what, let's just use it all. Let's just use it all. I'm a ricotta junkie. Toss it in. So I'm gonna get a couple sage leaves plucked out of here. Okay, so the dough is partially baked. We're not finished yet. And we got the ricotta melting all over there. And then we're gonna start putting some sage leaves on here because we didn't want them to burn. So this will just help them get a little toasty. I'm gonna take it out. Oh, I let it go. I let it go just a second too long. Oh, that's okay. So we've got a ricotta pizza, but it's not quite done yet. Let's sprinkle some walnuts on it. Aren't they delicious looking? We have some chili pepper I'm gonna put on here. Get honey on your spoon, but don't get a spoonful of it. Coat the spoon with the honey. Let the thick ribbon go away, and then you can drizzle the honey over the pizza. Oof. Oh, I cannot wait to dig into this. Let's take a bite of this. Hopefully this doesn't burn the roof of my mouth. And you can hear when you grab the crust, it gives that little delicious little crackle. Hot, oh, hot, hot. Ooh, but oh, so good. And the ricotta is so light, and the honey is so sweet, and the nuts are so crunchy. So yeah. Make some pizza.